Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
Emotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to LaSmith. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. LaBita.tv. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Friday night. Thanks, everyone, for watching. You're probably not used to seeing me on Friday nights. I don't work that many. Usually, it's my buddy Matt O'Hayan who does so, but he has a bachelor party tonight. Good for him. So I'm here to fill in. I want to start off with some really good news, and thanks, everyone, for watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And thanks, everyone who listens on Apple, Spotify, Google, and you name it. And everyone who's been there from day one, and everyone who continues to join and listen to us and subscribe to our channel. And by the way, it's absolutely free. We appreciate it very much. And so today we woke up to some real good news. You know, cultmtl.com is a website, a magazine, a paper. You can check it out. And every year they have, I believe it's 12 years running now, a very prestigious Best of Montreal 2024, pretty much in any category that you can think of. And it's open for everyone to go out there and vote. It's only one vote per IP address. So someone can't vote like 1,000 times for the same person. So it gives you a pretty good idea, a pretty good feel of what people like. And so there is a category for best podcast in Montreal, and we'll bring it up. And I'm really happy to say that the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro is number one on the list for Best of Montreal 2024 as per Cult Montreal. So thank you very much. And I'm going to tell you right now what I said via social media earlier today. First of all, I want to thank everyone who voted for me. Number two, I want to thank everyone who listens and or watches the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. Thank you very, very much. You know, when we do stuff like this, whether it's podcasting, radio, or television, if people don't listen or people don't watch, we're not going to last very long at our jobs. And whether it's our venture or whether it's we're employed by somebody else. So your support obviously means a lot. Also, our sponsors, you know, when you start off, there's bills that need to be paid, and you need a push, and you need some support, and you need some financial help. And they've been there, not only financially, but emotionally, not only as partners, but also as friends. So I want to thank everyone who sponsored the Sick Podcast from the very beginning. And I especially want to thank our current sponsors right now, Aldo Geloso and Ted Farace and staff over at the Geloso Beverage Group, which brings you La Bit at TB, of course. I want to thank Danny Ryan and all the owners of Playground. We very much appreciate their support. Ted Harmon at Accent Insurance Solutions and his team, and Energy Transportation Group. I want to thank them very much for their support. Mike Cinquino, Sean Gerard, David Grassi, and all their friendship. It means a lot to me. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And all those companies that I talked to you about, they're 4 great companies where there's very little turnover at those companies. And you can go there and you can see the same people working there for many, many years. And that's the sign of companies that treat their employees well. When employees like to work there, they love to work there, they want to stay there. And you know what? We have such a great relationship with our partners and our sponsors, and they make the Sick Podcast much, much better for sure. All my collaborators, all of them. I'm not going to say any one name for fear of actually forgetting one in particular, because there have been so many. As you know, of course, we go 5 days a week, and sometimes we'll go out of the blue as well. And, so I want to thank all the collaborators for their engagement, their professionalism, and their expertise. Speaking of which, one joins us right now, and he's been with us, I think, pretty much from the very early stages, that is. And he is Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com. Stu, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, Tony. Congratulations. Very well deserved. It's nice to see when hard work pays off, and I know how hard you work at this, so it's nice to see results coming for you.
I try. And you know what? I want to thank, obviously, Sammy and Agnello and the entire Cavallaro family for all their support. You don't usually see them on camera, but they work really hard behind camera, and they have a lot of ideas, and they have a lot of good ones. And so I want to thank them for the confidence they've shown in me as well. And we're not finished yet, and we really believe that the best is yet to come. So thank you very much for that, Stu. I appreciate it. Once again, the Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. It's also brought to you in part by Labit TV, and it's also brought to you in part by Playground, and brought to you in part by Accent Insurance Solutions. All right, Energy Transportation Group. Why don't I start talking to you about them, even though I already have, but I'll talk to you a little bit more about them, and then we'll get to the Montreal Canadiens for sure. They're a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. They are driven to be different. The people behind me, or that fridge and the drinks in that fridge, are Labit brewed in Quebec. Winner of a dozen international awards, Labit offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. Labit, embrace your true nature. We'll talk to you about Playground and Accent Insurance Solutions just a little bit later on. All right, Stu. The Montreal Canadiens season is obviously a thing of the past now. It's more than a couple of weeks. And we've got to a couple of report cards. And I don't want to get to the report card just now, but what I do want to get to is there's a discussion that's being had. And I have to tell you, I think it's an interesting one as to, should the Canadiens trade Mike Matheson? Now, you think about it, and at first thought, you say, no, that's a crazy idea. He's their best defenseman. But you also know how this game works. And this game, I mean, the ones who play it the best, and I'm talking about GMs and management teams, the ones who play it the best are the ones who stockpile assets, probably, buy low, end up selling high. And there's no doubt that when the Canadiens got Mike Matheson a trade, which was made up of Jeff Petrie, that the Canadiens got Matheson low. And there's no doubt, taking a look at the season that he had, the goals, the assists, the points, the time on ice, and all that stuff, that if they wanted to sell right now, they would sell high. He's got 2 years left on his contract at $4.875 million. I've made a case that you don't trade Mike Matheson now. You probably will in 2 years. But I've also made the case that I would totally understand if he gets extended at one point, because I think it's Grant McCagg. It is Grant McCagg of Recruits and Recruits.ca and the Recruits Draftcast podcast, who wrote an article, give or take about a month and a half ago, and said, for all of you who want to get rid of 30-plus-year-old defensemen, here's a list of Stanley Cup winners going back to 1990, and every single team had a defenseman of over 30 years old. Some of them had 2, some of them had 3, some of them had 4. Some of them had 2 defensemen of 35 years of age and older, and you get to understand the logic. But we know, Stu, the Canadiens need, in an ideal world, 2 players to play on their second line. They might end up getting 1 in the draft, but chances are where they're going to draft, unless they win the lottery, chances are that player is not going to play in the National Hockey League next season. Let's talk about Mike Matheson. When you hear people say, well, yeah, he's good, don't get me wrong, but he's a defensive liability, you say what?
I say any player who plays the amount of minutes that Mike Matheson does, has the puck on his stick as often as he does, and tries to create offense as much as he does, there's going to be turnovers. We had it when PK Subban was here also, right? The last sort of defenseman we had here who played that style of game. He's also on a team, as you mentioned, that their forwards, they don't have enough forwards who can score, so he's relied on heavily to create offense. So he's playing the game that Marty St. Louis and the coaching staff want him to play. They want him to be an offensive force because they don't have enough forwards up front who can score. And Mike Matheson's a really smart guy. We had a good conversation with him on the last day when they cleared out their lockers in Brossard. And he said, you can't just be a riverboat gambler and be gambling all the time. You have to, it's a risk reward thing. And he measures that. And as he said, he said if every defenseman in the team just fired the puck off the glass to get it out of the zone, we'd never win a hockey game. And he's right. There's not a lot of defensemen in the NHL.
That's a great line, by the way. That's a great
line. It is a great line. He's right. And the Canadiens had teams for a long time that's what they did, right? The defense weren't allowed to carry the puck over the red line. It was off the glass. The glass is your friend, off the glass and out. That's changed under Marty St. Louis. They want defensemen to carry the puck. They want them to move the puck. And nobody's better on the team than Mike Matheson. And there's very few guys in the NHL who are as good at doing it as Mike Matheson is. You're mentioning earlier what Grant McCagg talking about all these teams who have had defensemen over 30 years old that won the Stanley Cup. I'd be surprised if any of them, or very few of them, are in better shape than Mike Matheson at age 30. I mean, he's probably the fittest guy on the team. All the players talk about what a pro he is on the ice and off the ice, how everything he puts in his body, he thinks about hockey. Nathan McKinnon's like that also. He's in incredible shape. There's no fat on him. That's the reason he can play the amount of minutes he plays, and plus he's such an effortless skater. So, last year at this time, Tony, we were talking about Josh Anderson. Should they trade him? Shouldn't they trade him? I said they shouldn't. You said they should. I look dumb now on that one. But I think we're on the same page with Mike Matheson. I wouldn't be looking to trade him now. You also factor in the salary. I mean, everything in the NHL today revolves around the salary cap, and under $5 million for a defenseman like Mike Matheson. He ranked third in the NHL in average ice time this season. He played all 82 games. He had 25 minutes, 33 seconds average ice time. The only guys ahead of him were John Carlson and Drew Doughty, two pretty good defensemen. So, yeah. And as the salary cap goes up, I think he's only going to become more valuable with what he can do. And I don't see there's no world where I see Mike Matheson's game dropping off next season the way Josh Anderson's game dropped off this season. I just do not see it happening. If anything, I think he might be better. I think he's gained more confidence. He's in a role now. He went through a rough time at the beginning when he was in Florida and was healthy scratch. They even used him as a forward for a game or two. And, people talking about Lane Hudson now thinking he's just going to walk into the NHL and be a star. It's not easy. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be keeping Mike Matheson on this team, and I would not be looking to trade him if I were Ken Hughes.
Yeah, on Josh Anderson, Stu, if it's going to make you feel better, I'm going to tell you this, that even though I said to trade him a year ago, I still think his contract would have scared off a lot of people, and I don't think you would have had any takers. Now, has his value gone down in the last year? Yes. If there was one taker before, are there any now? Probably no, but I don't think there were too many takers a year ago either. So you don't have to feel bad about it, all right, Stu? No. Plus, I usually end up like I like to trade a lot of people. Okay. But I don't want to trade Mike Matheson. You're right about that, because he scored a couple of goals this season that lifted me off my seat.
That one Bobby Orr.
When you're 51 years old and you've been watching NHL hockey for 40 years and you've sat in the press box for about 500 games, and Stu, you've sat in the press box for probably, I don't know, over 1,000 games, I would imagine. You kind of feel like you've seen everything before. Well, Mike Matheson's not a regular player.
No.
Because when you talked about him, one of the names you brought up was PK Subban. PK Subban's one of the most exciting players the Canadiens have had in a long, long time. Whether you liked them or you didn't like them, fair is fair. You can't take away from the fact that PK Subban
people criticize him for the same things. People criticize him for the same things they're criticizing Matheson for now.
Yeah, you remember that goal that they gave up in Colorado when he pinched?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Michel Therrien wasn't happy, and called him out at the end of the game.
Max Pacioretty quit on the back check on that one, which
that is correct.
It's a bigger issue than PK getting caught pinching.
That is correct. And a lot of people say, well, you got to choose your spots and stuff like that. But I'm happy that, and you know what? It's probably easier though, even for Matheson to play the kind of game that he played, knowing that you're in a rebuild. Like Matheson says, you got to pick your spots, right? We all get that, but you don't have to pick as many when you're rebuilding.
No, you don't. And I asked Matheson, I said, do you think the leash will get tighter on you moving forward as the Canadiens hopefully get more forwards who can score? And he thought for a second. He said, I don't know. He says, that's when he brought up, I'm not a riverboat gambler. I'm not just gambling for no reason. I'm weighing different things. And one of the highlight reel goals he scored this year, I mentioned a Bobby Orr goal where he went end to end. You can see he carried the puck and he saw nobody was really forcing him, right? They're all sort of backing off, and he took advantage of it, and it was one of the best goals of the season. And when you talk with Mike Matheson, he's just such a smart guy and a good guy. He's so well respected in the locker room. He's good on the ice. He's good off the ice. He's very intelligent. Nobody knows him better than Kent Hughes. Kent Hughes was his agent from the time he was 14 years old or 15 years old.
Yeah.
Came to walk St. Louis Lions. There's a reason why there's an A on his sweater. He's a key. You can't just trade all your veteran guys and play a bunch of rookies. You're not going to win. Same as if you just have all your defensemen fire the puck off the glass, you're not going to win. So there's so many good things about Mike Matheson. And what's a bad thing? Like, really, what is a bad thing? Okay, he cops a puck up sometimes. Maybe he tries to do something maybe you shouldn't have done. But people focus on that rather than focusing on the 7 or 8 other times he maybe made a great play and created offense. But I think the leash will tighten on him a bit. Not even necessarily because the coaches yank on it, just because he's going to realize he doesn't have to do as much, or hopefully won't have to do as much as he has to do right now to try and get this team to score goals.
It was 2 weeks ago today. I had a great conversation. I had several. Paul Byron, had a chance to speak with him, had a chance to speak with Max Talbot, had a chance to speak with Caroline Ouellette, had a chance to speak with Sergio Momesso, and had a chance to speak with Michel Bergeron over at the Barry F. Lorenzetti Foundation. It was the Foundation Cup, which took place at the Bell Center. I had a pretty good chat with Jeff Molson as well, who was there watching the event. And later on, after they finished their game, which raised $150,000, among other things, for mental health and autism, we went over to Da Vinci's on Bishop Street for a good lunch, and stayed there for a couple of hours. And a lot of former NHLers there talking. And Francis Bouillon was there, who obviously works for the Canadiens, as well as Paul Byron, Matthew Dandino, former Hab, Patrice Brisebois, former Hab. List goes on and on. And I had a great talk, I thought, with Michel Bergeron. And Bergeron said, anyone who brings up Matheson's plus minus, the Canadiens lost over 30 games by a goal. He said, when you're losing a game by a goal or two, more often than not, you're going to pull your goalie. Matheson's on the ice when they pull the goalie because Matheson's on the ice to try and equalize. Mm-hmm. He says, I think the other team scored 11 or 12 goals when the Canadiens pulled their goalie.
Yeah.
He says, people are really going to look at that stat, really? And not to mention that, I don't think enough people put enough attention on the fact that he's going up against the other team's best players.
And so is
best line.
And Nick Suzuki was minus 16, I think, or something like that. And people say, how can he be a candidate for the Selke when he's minus 16? Well, because he's on a bad team, play against the other team's number one line every game. And the same with Mike Matheson. So all stats, a lot of these analytics stats need to be taken with a grain of salt too, but plus minus needs to, if you're Alex Ovechkin and you're scoring back in the day 55 goals a year and you're minus 28, there might be a problem with your defensive play, right? But when you look at a guy like Mike Matheson, it's not that plus minus, as you say. I think he's bang on with that. It's that with a huge grain of salt because he's, as you say, empty net goals, and he's playing against the other team's top players every game.
All right. So, the discussion is brought up once again because the Canadiens need a couple of players on the second line. They got a first line for now, unless they dismantle it. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What they got is definitely working with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and Juraj Slafkovsky on the first line. And then all of a sudden, Kirby Dach's on the second line, and you're looking left, right, and you're saying, okay, don't want to rush Joshua Roy just yet. Alex Newhook might end up being a real good third-line centerman. You could end up putting Jake Evans in the 4-hole at that point. Anderson hasn't shown enough consistency, so he probably won't be there. Armia works really well on the third line, so why put him on the second line? So now you're saying, okay, you need a couple of players. And then you're looking at the Canadiens and you're saying, well, you know what? There's a lot of depth on the fence. They're very, very deep. Well, if they were deep before today, well, imagine today when the Montreal Canadiens put this out there, they signed defenseman Adam Engstrom to a 3-year deal, entry-level deal. That was announced earlier this morning at 8:01 a.m. Who is Adam Engstrom? Let's bring up his hockey DB for those who don't know He is a third-round pick, 92nd overall in the 2022 draft, which is the Slavkovsky draft. And of course, he's been playing over in Sweden. There's his stats, 51 games, 4 goals, 18 assists, 22 points. In 15 playoff games, he had 4 assists. The numbers are okay, mind you. It's a tough league to put up numbers in. Stu, I think you were with me at development camp. I'm pretty sure you were there.
Yep.
I had a chance to see Adam Engstrom. You were there, were you not? You had a chance to see him?
I was, yeah. I was there through that whole camp.
Yeah, and I really liked what I saw that day.
A skilled puck-moving defenseman, another modern-day NHL-type defenseman. And the Canadiens, we talk about asset management, and that's been probably the strongest point of Kent Hughes, along with just the way he treats people since he took over this job. And they're loaded. Like Canadiens have enough now with their 2 first-round picks this year, 2 first-round picks next year, and this abundance of young defensemen that I think this summer they can get 2 forwards who can play top 6 next season. I wouldn't be shocked if Kent Hughes can pull it off. They've got so many guys of these young defensemen and package this guy and that guy and make a couple of moves and throw in a first-round pick. This is going to be a really interesting offseason for Kent Hughes. And I think they're at a point now, they were willing to use the P word at the end of the season. Like, they'd like to make the playoffs. They're not going to blow up their plan and try and push just to make the playoffs next year. But I think that in the back of their minds, they realize the patience of Montreal fans has been pretty phenomenal up until now, the way they cheered this team on. But another year of missing the playoffs, another year of being in the draft lottery, I think fans are going to start to get antsy a bit. So I think they're looking to, and they spoke about this at their postseason news conference, both Gorton and Hughes. They realize that they need offense, they need forwards who can score. And I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up a couple, like another Kirby Doc type player, another Alex Newhook type player this offseason. And boy, what a huge boost that would be for the team. You got to give up something to get something, but they have a lot of young defensemen that they can afford to give up and still have a lot of depth. And that goes back to also Mike Matheson. Why you're not going to trade Mike Matheson if you're going to be trading some of your young defense prospects.
The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Playground, with over 30,000 square feet of new gaming, dining, and entertainment space. Time to reacquaint yourself with Playground, world-class sushi, AAA steaks, live shows, a brand new poker floor, so much more. Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground, experience the Strip without the trip. Okay, several stats on Mike Matheson. Let's bring up, you talked about his shape, the way he takes care of his body. Let's take a look at time on ice. Shane Gaumont on Master Control, if you can bring it up, very much appreciated. Look how fast that was. Man, this guy's getting good. All right, okay. This guy is good. John Carlson, 25-54. Drew Doughty, 25-48. Mike Matheson, 25-33. Seth Jones in the 4 spot. Rasmus Dahlin in 5. Brock Faber in 6. Charlie McAvoy 7. Victor Hedman 8. Cale Makar 9. Christopher Letang 10. Mike Matheson, out of all defensemen in the National Hockey League, is 3rd for time on ice.
Yep. Yeah, that's and playing on a team that's not very good, which goes back again to the plus minus you were talking about. It's.
If you're St. Louis, would you play him less? And I understand you said he's in amazing shape and all that stuff, probably the best shape of anyone on the team, but they'll probably end up getting more longevity out of him and probably end up getting better play out of him when it's more important to get better play than it is right now, because they're in a rebuilding phase. Yep. Would you have brought down those minutes?
Well, if Lane Hudson's here next season, and I don't see any reason why he's not going to start the season, I'd be surprised if he doesn't start the season next year. And if he becomes their number 1 power play guy, that's going to reduce some time for Mike Matheson. You can maybe cut back a little bit on his penalty killing minutes, which are tough also. But it's one of those things that would be, as he said many times, no player is going to complain he's getting too much ice time. Some players can't handle that ice time. Mike Matheson can. So I think they would probably like to drop it a bit. I was just looking up when we were talking, like John Carlson playing on a team that made the playoffs, a better team than the Canadiens. He was -7 on logging all those minutes, which isn't shocking either, right? For a guy logging all that minutes, a similar type of defense. So would they like to reduce his minutes? I'm sure they would. And I think they will, but not by a ton. Like, he's comfortable playing those minutes. As Marty St. Louis said, he glides along the ice. It's not like he's even chopping into the ice. He's effortless. And you see him on 3-on-3 when he'll rush the puck and he's first guy back. And there's not, I've watched a lot of hockey in the NHL, and there's not a lot of guys. There's a handful of guys maybe I've seen that can skate like Mike Matheson. I mean,
as I've said all along, thus far in the first round of the playoffs, the episodes of the Sick Podcast have been pre-recorded. Why? Well, because anyone in hockey is either working radio, television, podcasting, or writing, print, and they want to watch the games. So right now, you're probably watching Dallas and Vegas. And earlier tonight, there was a game between Vancouver and Nashville. But we are recording this podcast before those games started. Okay. I look at the time on ice, and there were nights where I said, but I remember asking Marc Bergevin a question once about Andrei Markov. And I said to him, Mark, you yourself at one point said, in your ideal world, you'd like to see Markov get less minutes. Well, the Canadiens had gone on to play like 4 games in 6 days. And Markov was playing like 26, 27, 25, 26, 28, 29, whatever. And I brought it up to him. I said, well, you've just played 4 games in 6 nights or whatever, and these are Markov's minutes. You said you'd like to see him get less. What do you say to that? And I thought his answer was good at the time, and I bought it. He said, Tony, we have a plan, but the coach wants to win hockey games. And, all of a sudden, you're in a 1-goal game or you're in a tie hockey game. You don't want Markov on the bench. You want him on the ice. Yeah.
And so if you're up by a goal or down by a goal, you want him out there. So the minutes are going to be there.
So it's kind of easy to go from 21 to 27 in that respect, right? And so I get that. Mind
he
you,
also played all 82 games. He didn't miss a game this season, Matheson, despite all that time.
So Lane Hudson will come in next year, like you said, and maybe take some of those minutes away, or maybe, as Pierre Maguire has suggested, and it's something that I'd like to see every now and then. I know players don't like doing it. I know especially defensemen don't like doing it, going to 7D, but it could be something that we might see next year.
Yeah,
the Spain's going 11 forwards, 7D. You double shift your forwards, and you end up having 7D. You spot Lane Hudson, or maybe some watching are going to say, you don't have to spot him. He's that good. He can play all the time. Okay. He did in the last 2 games, and he looked really good, as a matter of fact. And maybe that's the way you handle it.
The other thing with Lane Hudson, though, coming from a college schedule where you're playing 35 games, regular season games, to playing an 82-game NHL season is a huge jump.
You can hit a wall.
And the physicality of it. So that I could see that happening. It's,
like Kotkaniemi hit the wall. Remember, Kotkaniemi was almost falling by himself because you felt the fatigue.
7 defensemen, and you use him on your power play. Maybe leave him out there the full 2 minutes, and spot him defensively, because he's not. I think I've said this before. I remember interviewing at the development camp, and you were probably there also, Tony. And not wearing shorts, and his legs were so skinny. Like never seen skinny legs like that in a hockey player. He's got to get stronger, physically stronger. But I'd be surprised if he doesn't start the season with the Canadiens, and dressing 7 defensemen some nights to spot him in would make sense. And also, they're going to have other young guys here this next season too, and it's sort of pick and choose your spots where you want to play certain players. If Logan Mayhew's up here next season, guys like that. So that would make sense to me, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they end up with that game. That some games with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen.
Okay.
As you always say, play double shift your best players, right? It gives you a chance.
That comes from Peter from Côte St. Luc. I'm not going to take any credit for it. Double shift.
Yeah.
Your best players.
So if you get
working radio.
Yeah. So if you're doing that, you can play Nick Suzuki more. You can play Kirby Doc more if he's healthy. So that would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I was working radio several years back. The Montreal Canadiens went up against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round of the playoffs, of course, and no one gave the Montreal Canadiens a chance. I believe it was 2021. And Peter from Côte St. Luc called into the radio station and said, everyone's down here. I know exactly what they should do. Double shift your best players. And the Montreal Canadiens didn't listen. They went down 3-1 in the series. And then as of game 5, they went to 4 defensemen. And they were playing Weber, Edmondson, Sherratt, and Petrie all the time. So they double shifted their best defensemen. And what did the Montreal Canadiens do?
The 4 Clydesdales, they rode them to the Stanley Cup final.
They won Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7, 5 and 6, which were in overtime, by the way, on goals by Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And then they went into Toronto and won by a score of 3-1. And Peter was right. Double shift your best players.
I remember Game 6, though, Tony, in that series. I think Canadiens got outshot like 13-2 in that overtime.
In the overtime, yes.
And I remember they couldn't. The 4 Clydesdales were dead. Like they had nothing left. And we're talking about off the glass. That's all they were trying to do. They were just firing it off the glass and praying it would get out. Carey Price stood on his head. And then they got a chance to score, and they scored.
You remember who gave up the puck in Game 5 in overtime?
Alex Galchenyuk, wasn't it?
Alex Galchenyuk gave up the puck, and Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield went on a 2-on-0 in overtime. And it wasn't Suzuki who shot the puck. It was Suzuki. It wasn't Caulfield who shot the puck. He ended up passing it to Suzuki, who scored, right? That was
remember that Game 6, and what a different world it would have been, Tony, if the Leafs had scored in that overtime. Marc Bergevin probably doesn't come back. Coach probably doesn't come back. There's a lot of things that Game 6 delayed the Canadiens' rebuilding process.
Yeah,
because if they lost that game, I think a lot of things. Ducharme's gone, Bergevin's gone. Instead, Ducharme gets a contract extension in the offseason. How do you not re-sign the coach who just took you to the Stanley Cup final? So that Game 6 was a real turning point in both a good way and a bad way for the Canadiens. Yeah. I remember Carey Price was just amazing that game. He was
pretty awesome for Luke Richardson as well, who coached the Canadiens to a win versus the Vegas Golden Knights in the semis, because Dominic Ducharme was he was out with COVID, right?
Yep. And I remember Ben Sherratt's line, everybody on this team would skate through a wall for Luke Richardson.
Yeah.
You never heard a quote like that about no knock on Dominic Ducharme, but you didn't hear players talk like that about Dominic Ducharme.
A shout out to accentinsurance.com. All insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money. Whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business, you can call the Accent team at 363-3636 and get the right solution at the right price. Visit their website at accentassurance.com. All right, okay.
Just interrupt a second, Tony. Talk about those 4 Clydesdales. Do you see Joel Edmondson last night in the final minutes of that game?
That's his best game that he's played in a long time.
He played like a Clydesdale again. He was really effective. He was physical, getting the puck out of the zone. I watched
block shots.
That was the Joel Edmondson I remember from that playoff run in 2021. And that's the Joel Edmondson the Leafs were hoping they were going to get when they made that trade.
Well, you're right, because a lot of people laughed at the trade to bring Joel Edmondson to Toronto. But what the Leafs were hoping for is that there was a little bit of juice left in that orange. Yeah. And last night, there was, and I have a feeling he'll be ready for Game 7 in Boston. Isn't that something? All right, okay. Assists. Where does Mike Matheson rank in assists? We already showed you time on ice for defenseman in the National Hockey League. He's third, or he was third this past season. Assists, ninth in assists. Hughes 75, Makar 69, Bouchard 64. Hedman 63, Yossi 62, Dobson 60, Morrissey 59, Adam Fox 56, Mike Matheson 51, as well as Morgan Riley. So tied for ninth. That's another great number.
Yeah, and Cale Makar's got some better forwards to pass the puck to than Mike Matheson does, too.
You're telling me. You're telling me.
I mean, how many of Cale Makar's assists were coming in behind his own in his own zone and passing the puck to McKinnon, who takes off down the ice and passes it to somebody else and they score. It's so for Matheson, 51 assists to rank ninth in the NHL in assists by a defenseman on a team that struggled. I think Canadiens ranked 26th or 27th in offense this season. That's really impressive.
Where did he finish in points in the regular season? Quinn Hughes, 92. Cale Makar, 90. Roman Yossi, 85. Evan Bouchard, 82. Victor Hedman, 76. Adam Fox, 73. Noah Dobson, 70. Josh Morrissey, 69. Mike Matheson, 9th in the National Hockey League at 62 points. So 9th in assist, 9th in points, 3rd in time on ice. And let's take a look at his hockey DB to show to compare the actual season that he had this year compared to other seasons. As you see right now, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, and if you're not watching and you're listening, I'll tell you about it. So Mike Matheson played his first 3 games in the National Hockey League with the Florida Panthers in 2015, 2016, of course, being a 23rd pick overall by the Panthers in the 2020 draft. That's a draft that took place in Pittsburgh when the Canadiens drafted Galchenyuk third. All right, so the following season, he plays 81 for Florida, gets 17 points. The year after that, 81 for Florida, gets 27 points. After that, 75 for Florida, 27 points. 59 games for Florida, 20 points. 44 games for Pittsburgh, traded to them, 16 points, pardon me. Then 74 games for Pittsburgh, 31 points, and joins the Canadiens, 48 games, 34 points. So the 34 points he got with the Canadiens last year were the most points that he's had in the National Hockey League. The 26 assists were the most assists he had in the National Hockey League, and he had only played 48 games. This year, he played 82 games. His 11 goals were most he scored in the National Hockey League, tied with a couple of years ago in Pittsburgh. His 51 assists were 25 assists better than 1 year ago, and his 62 points were 28 points better than 1 year ago. Mike Matheson's best season of his career.
Yep. I wrote a column a little while ago, and I can't remember. It's either there's only 5 or 6 defensemen in Canadiens history who have had more than 60 points in a season. And so that's
elite company.
It's elite company. And, you look at the previous, you look at Quinn Hughes with 92 assists. That bodes well for young Canadiens defensemen coming up that were worried about his size, right? With Hudson.
Do you
defend? I mean, Quinn Hughes isn't a big guy either, but he's shown that the offensive ability he has, that special gift that Lane Hudson has also, that we only saw him a couple of games. But I mean, when he set up Slavkovsky for his deflection for his 20th goal, and that little jitter that he moved at the blue line, Logan Mayo described him as a water bug. He's so shifty, and he just sees the game differently than other people. And you know who else sees the game differently than other people? Marty St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
So it's really going to be interesting to see what Marty St. Louis, even though he's not in charge of defense, Stefan Robeta is, but Marty still has a say. It's really going to be interesting. Marty St. Louis, I'm sure he lives, breathes, sleeps hockey. It's like 24/7 for him. He's already like thinking things that he's going to be able to do with Lane Hudson. Like what a weapon he could become. And to have Marty St. Louis, the guy pulling the trigger with that weapon, that's something I'm really, really, really looking forward to see. I mean, you go back to development camp last season. I mean, I wrote a column back then. Lane Hudson was by far the best player on the ice. Like he just every time he touched a puck, it was like, as you were saying, every time he touched a puck, you were going. And the only development camp I remember before with that was Cole Caulfield when he came in. And I remember he came started shooting the puck, and we were going, wow. Like with Slavkovsky, the wow factor was his size. Like, wow, this kid is friggin' huge for an 18-year-old. Yeah. But the skill level with Lane Hudson,
you and I were together that day too. Was it a day or two before the draft?
The day before the draft, Montreal. Yeah, that was a fun day. Yeah, that was.
Remember? We had a few good laughs with Slavkovsky that day.
We walked by, and the kid was bigger than me. I'm a pretty big guy, and he's 18 years old. I was going, oh man, this guy. And I remember
I got something for you. Okay, I know you like Mike Matheson personally. So do I. I mean, who doesn't, right? I mean, you guy's amazing, right? He's everything the Canadiens would want. He's a kid from here. He's a kid from the West Island. They know him. They know him like the back of their hand, right? He never gives them any problems off the ice. Conducts himself as a true Montreal Canadian gentleman. This guy is going to be an ambassador one day. He'll be an alumni ambassador, all that stuff, right? I'm sure you also adhere, though, to the logic of you trade your assets when they're at an all-time high. I'm sure you adhere to that logic, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you also adhere to the logic of you trade from a position of strength. Look at all the defense they have, and you try and shore up a position of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, and I have a feeling you're leaning towards the Canadiens shouldn't trade Matheson, and I say no as well.
Yeah.
But I just want you to tell me and everyone watching and everyone listening why for you. Is it a firm no?
Yes. I mean, is it a firm no? If they are, somebody obviously the number 1 overall pick in the draft and whatnot. Of course, I mean anybody can be traded. As we all see with Wayne Gretzky. But for me, it's a no.
What if they offer you Jonathan Drouin? I'm kidding. Just go ahead. Go ahead.
I felt bad for Jonathan Drouin not being able to play in the first round after the season.
Yeah.
But with Matheson, I think it's sell high. I think his value is going to be even higher. Like next season.
I should have said Pierre-Luc Dubois. Would have been funnier.
Oh God. Okay. I mean, as I've said, that shift he had in Columbus when he wanted out, and he just went out and didn't give a what. To me, it was all kinds of red flags about the character or lack of character. Was seeing
anyway,
so continue. I think it's just because I think 2 years from now, in the last season of his contract, we're going to know, can Lane Hudson be Quinn Hughes in the NHL? Can Logan Mailloux be a solid defenseman in the NHL? The other young defenseman, David Reinbacher, 2 years from now, will have an idea. Is he everything the Canadiens thought he was when they drafted him?
Mailloux.
Then I think you're dealing from even more of a position of strength. I don't see Mike Matheson's game dropping off. So in 2 years from now, he's in the last year of his contract. If they decide they're not going to extend him, he's going to be 32 then. He could be a rental for a playoff team, right? At that point. And I think you're dealing from more of a position of strength 2 years from now than you are now with Mike Matheson. As far as the rebuild of your team, where your team is and how you can afford to lose him or not afford to lose him. I don't think they can really afford to lose him right now, not just for his play on the ice. You mentioned you were talking with Paul Byron recently. Paul Byron and Mike Matheson are very, very similar in character, very, very similar type of top-notch people. I just think in this point in the rebuild, there's a lot more positive keeping Mike Matheson than moving him. And 2 years from now, Mike Matheson's still playing similar level to what he is now. Then I think it's more understandable you trade high, sell low, because at that point he's 32. Okay, he's still in great shape. How many more years? And we got Lane Hudson, and we got David Reinbacher, who's everything we thought he would be, and we got Logan Mailloux, who's maybe with Arbor Jacki, one of the most physically defensive pairs in the NHL. And then you can afford to lose Mike Matheson and get a lot from him and continue not the rebuilding, but continue to build assets and have more assets moving forward. So I just think that would be my argument. I think dealing from a position of strength, I think they're going to be dealing from even a better position of strength 2 years from now with Mike Matheson, or even next year if they decide next year that they can afford to lose him.
For those who have watched me do my thing and listened to me do my thing for the last 20 plus years, Stu, they know that I love a good disagreement and I love a good debate. But I think you and I are on the same page, and it's probably fitting we are because it's Friday night. And you know what? Let's just go out and enjoy our weekend. And I know you like your deck, and I know you love your dogs. So hopefully the weather is nice over the next couple of days, and you can go out on the deck with a bit of TB and enjoy the nice weather. What are you working on over the next little while? I would imagine looking forward to the draft lottery in a couple of days, right?
Looking forward to the draft lottery. I'm going to be doing some stuff. I'm actually written something that's going to be in Saturday's paper on Terry Mosher's new book on the Expos that he just published recently, which is a really fun, good read for anybody who, like me, grew up with the Expos. The baseball was my favorite sport as a kid. Rusty Staub was my first sports hero. So I sat down with Terry this week. So that's going to be in Saturday's paper. It'll be online Saturday morning. Also, next week, there's a few things. There's the women's hockey playoffs are going to be starting up. So I'll be doing something on that. And as you know better than anybody, we got Lionel Messi coming to Saputo Stadium a week from Saturday. So,
hey. There's somewhere I want you to be. Somewhere I want you to be on Wednesday night.
Where's that?
I want you to be at Claude Robillard if you can. It's an amazing story, but the semi-professional men's CS Saint Laurent team playing in the Canadian Championship went to Halifax yesterday to play CPL team, the Halifax Wanderers. And I need you to think about this for a second, right? It's a semi-professional team that trains 3 days a week, give or take, on turf, that has several players that go to school or take courses online. Several of them have full-time jobs, and they go up against a professional team who chances are not many of them go to school. I would imagine that if anything, they might do a course or two online with playing once again, training 5 days a week, playing in front of their fans on their grass, and that's semi-professional Saint Laurent team won on penalties last night in Halifax, and now they're going to play in the Canadian Championship quarterfinals in a 2-leg series versus Toronto FC. Wow. And the first leg is going to take place on Wednesday at Centre Claude Robillard.
Wow. Centre, I remember covering the Impact way back in the early days in that behind the glass press box area. You didn't even hear what was going on. That's fantastic. Love those kind of stories. Claude Robillard.
So, CS Saint Laurent actually has sent a memo out to all of their board and all of their players, parents, everyone, that on Wednesday night next week, there is no practice. And they want everyone over at Robillard. Tickets went on sale earlier this morning for $20 a pop with a service charge. I bought 2 tickets for $47. And I think they could probably, in the old configuration, they could put over 10,000. In this configuration, maybe 3,000-4,000 less. But I would hope it's going to sell out, and I'm going to be there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because, look, once in a lifetime opportunities for so many players. Can you imagine one of these players scores a big goal versus Toronto FC? Your life changes like that.
I'd be surprised it doesn't. Imagine Toronto FC fans. I imagine there'll be quite a few of them coming in from Toronto also. They have quite a rabid fan base there. So that's.
I know you're busy, but if you could be there on Wednesday night, I'll see you there.
All right, you're going to be at the Lionel Messi game also, I imagine.
I definitely will be. Yes.
That's going to be quite the event. That's.
Have you received your accreditation yet?
Because I applied for it, but I'm hoping I get it because I know I imagine there's a huge demand for it. I haven't heard back yet, but I mean that's the biggest world. I mean, what bigger world sports star has performed in Montreal? I'm trying to think. I mean, it's you go back to Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard fight, but they're not at the same level. I mean, Lionel Messi is one of the most famous athletes in the world, right? It's like with DJ Drogba. I remember when DJ Drogba came here, I remember the welcome he had at the airport. DJ Drogba is the biggest world sports star to ever play in Montreal, and now we got Lionel Messi coming here. So that's pretty cool.
The Beckham game, I think, drew 55,000 when he was playing for the Galaxy, and they played in Olympic Stadium, I think. Yeah. Anyway, we're very much. It's going to be a rock and roll week in Montreal next week for sure. Stu, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
You too, Tony. Take care, buddy.
Thank you very much. Once again, special thanks to Energy Transportation Group. Thank you to La Bite TB. Thank you to Playground. And thank you to Accent Insurance Solutions. And once again, thank you to all of you who are watching. Once again, Best of Montreal 2024. You had a chance to vote on cultmtl.com. In the best podcast category for 2024, this podcast came in at number 1. So we are extremely, extremely, extremely grateful. Thank you to my Sick Army. Thank you, my Sick community. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to all of our collaborators. And we promised you earlier today that the best is yet to come. And I really believe that. So once again, thanks for watching. Thanks to Stu Cowan for all his collaboration. Thanks to Shane Gomo and Master Control. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. La Vida TB, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.